Thank you for being here. It's so good to be with you. It's so good to see you because I got to be honest with you, I wouldn't pay money to see me speak. No, there's no way. But I appreciate you coming out, and I mean, these days I'm looking at speakers, listening to speakers, and you pay some money for them, and they may say a few things here and there, but at the end you're like, hey, for 300 Hong Kong dollars, you better say something. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I want to applaud this team here that has worked so hard at PolyU. These are students, just like most of us, and they have been able to organize this, sustain it, manage it. And so let's give them a hand as well. Can I ask you to give them a hand? Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you, team. And this is an amazing moment. One of the exchange students that I was able to meet this past week, he gave me this idea, just like all the other ideas that have been really worth spreading from both Doug and from Desmond, to share with you this afternoon. Something in my past that's still going on that I want to share with all of you. He asked me the question, and I want to ask you the same question. Since he found out that I have lived in about 22 different places and cities throughout my time after university. I have moved about 22 times. This is about the 23rd time I've moved around. And Hong Kong is being the 23rd place that I've moved to. I don't know if I have the right to say all this, but I'm wondering how much of a love do you have for Hong Kong? Can I have the clicker? There are some serious challenges, as we've just heard. Issues with air and water pollution, property prices, housing. You know, these are well documented. I mean, you've all experienced this. Small businesses failing just as fast as they pop up. How many of you have been to a restaurant one day and said, this food is amazing, I swear I'm coming back again? And then the next day there's a sign on the window, you know, we love you all, but dermed you all, it's up luck. Or we've run out of business. So very sad. The rent and housing prices are always skyrocketing so much that very few people can afford it. It's the same with our education system too. Everyone's vying for that small piece of pie, competing for that, so much so that it makes everything so competitive. The lack of space, and all the students are pretty much learning, basically, how to vie for that small piece of pie. You know, buy low, sell high. Basically, get as much as you can without giving as much at all. So this is our city. A lot of issues. For all the amazing good things about Hong Kong, there are also these realities. And even local students ask us, you know, why do you stay here? I mean, the hospital system, the school system that is so difficult to find special needs education. In the hospital system where the doctors and nurses, honestly, are so understaffed that they cannot even care for their patients in the right ways that they want to. I know this because of a tragedy that struck our family when our 7-month-old born with Edwards syndrome was stuck in the hospital, and they kept him there until he passed away last year. This is a reality of Hong Kong. So ask me the question, why do you want to stay here? Why don't you want to go to a place where you can have more space to sleep, have more room to grow, have more parks to play in, have more places for your children to go to school, more options, and even a better education system? Why do you stay here? I want to let you know about this because I want to give you a little bit of background, because I believe that we can be reshaped. And my answer to that question has always been the same. I have been reshaped by Hong Kong because of our experiences. I have been reshaped, and I think we can reshape Hong Kong. Would you agree? We can reshape it. Local students, I'm talking to you as well, we can reshape the mindset and the learning that we have here. So let me give you a little bit of background for myself to let you know what I mean by our reshaping. I grew up mostly in the suburbs of Chicago, which means that the city is dependent on Chicago for many things. And what I found out later on was that these are Caucasians and Asians, for the most part, have left the city and moved into the city where I grew up. And so the school that I grew up was mostly Caucasians, very few Asians. Maybe I was one of 4 Asians in my class, or in my whole school, out of 400 students, from kindergarten to 8th grade. There were maybe a total of 2 black children, and maybe a total of 4 Latinos, okay? And maybe 1 half Asian mixed in there. And so every day, I had to be reshaped. Every day, I had to think differently. I had to eat different foods. I had to learn different idiosyncrasies that I wasn't used to, a totally different culture, or English, using U.S. English words that I wasn't used to growing up. I had to think about everything very, very differently. And the one thing that I can think of that was the same was basketball. That pretty much saved me. I don't have many pictures here back when I was in 8th grade. That was a long time ago. But you just have to believe me, basketball was my thing. I loved it. Not that I was very good at it, but I loved it. So basketball was my thing. And it really saved me because it brought this similarity that allowed me to mix with my peers. Fast forward 10 years, I was right immediately after university. I started living in this city that also reshaped my thinking, called Milwaukee. Anybody heard of Milwaukee, Wisconsin? A few of you, thank you very much. Not many people in Asia have really heard of that city, but it's also a sister city of Chicago. And this, like I said, the city really reshaped my life as well, because I also lived in a part of the city that was primarily African American, a culture that I had not been familiar with at all. And when I got there, it was suggested to me that I play basketball to get into the community. And luckily, there were several courts right across the street from where I worked. So I would go there every day. And these are courts where immediately when the snow would melt, there would be 200 people gathered right there ready to run. So I was there every day, bar none. And I was able to play basketball, but at first, nobody wanted to play with me. Nobody wanted to pass me the ball. When I did play, nobody wanted to pass me the ball. In fact, after 2 months, nobody passed me the ball. And so I got really discouraged. In fact, I almost moved back to Chicago. And my mentor told me, you know what, Ivan, just stick with it. Because the longer you stay, the longer you'll be there, they'll welcome you, they'll invite you into the community, but you got to stay there. Keep going. Stick with it every day. And I finally did. And they finally passed the ball to me, thank goodness. And I actually did something with it. I lobbed it up, and I remember my teammate taking it from midair and dunking it. Again, I don't have the pictures to show you. You got to believe me, okay? And finally, they started talking to me because I did something with the ball. I got into the community. And you know what they said? They said, what the heck are you coming here? Why are you coming here every day? I said, I work right over there. Have you noticed? And what I found out was that this is the first time they've ever seen an Asian play basketball. First time. They've never seen an Asian. I mean, nowadays we got, crazy rich Asians. We know Asians can do more than just the stereotypes. But it's the first time they've seen it. I found out some more things. I found out that the whites and the Asians left that part of the city, left them to deal with the horrible school systems and the crime and the violence. And they had to cope with it without the help of others and the government itself. And so that was really tough. It changed, it reshaped my thinking about living and learning and where I choose to live. But all of that reshaped me, or prepared me, I should say, to be completely reshaped again. This time, it was through a couple things. One, 10 years down the road was my journey by this time, because I had realized that if Asians and whites in my cities went one direction, for myself, I needed to move in the complete opposite direction in order to be reshaped by people different than me. Get it? I needed to do that for myself. So I did that in the Houstons of this world and the New Yorks of this world. I needed to do that for myself. I mean, how are you supposed to be reshaped if you keep on hanging out with people who are similar to you? Moreover, how are you supposed to be reshaped if you do not emulate those who are different than you? Now, I don't claim to be an expert in all of this. I just want to live it out well and try to represent it accurately. But as I kept working and getting into these cities and going the opposite direction from most of my peers in the comforts of their suburban life, I decided to explore some incredible cities, and these really helped reshape my life. And I don't know that many people. I don't know that many organizations or institutions or schools or universities that say, hey, you know what? There's something going on in Africa. There's something going on over there that's really good by Africans, for Africans. We don't just need to send a service team over there to do stuff. We want to sit there and just learn from these folks. I mean, have you ever thought about that? Have you heard that before? I mean, I haven't heard that in Hong Kong. This is a copycat world. We love to emulate the big-time US universities and the schools, and we'd like to copy those things. But I haven't heard that much about the other side, so I needed to explore the other side. And what I found out reshaped me. My students from Africa, the cities in Africa that completely shaped me. I was raised in the 80s and 90s, and the news that dominated the TV at the time was the system of apartheid in South Africa. And if you don't know what apartheid is, apartheid was a system that perpetuated racism and discrimination between the minority whites and the majority blacks since the 1940s. And fortunately, because of people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he was able to overturn that in 1990. And because of that movement, the country changed forever. And the question was, what do we do with all the oppressors and the violators and all the people who have discriminated? What do we do with them? And Desmond Tutu said this. He said, we need to find something that's of deep African root, something that would be able to bring us back together, because when the victims and oppressor come together and reconcile, this is when the country will heal. And at this heart of this African understanding is that I am because I belong. I am because I belong. My individuality is primarily affirmed based on the quality of connections I have with others. My critical aspects of life are seen through relationship with others, not necessarily to fulfill tasks and goals and objectives, but to increase the quality of relationship to one's family, friends, and neighbors. Traditional Africans call this a vital union or a communion, a bond that already exists because of our common ancestry. The goodness of each individual life depends on the goodness of this undivided unity with others. It is a holistic perspective of life through the quality of bonding and solidarity with others. Now let me stop right there. This is a little bit foreign. This is called Ubuntu. Ubuntu, all right? And if you like 90s music, I'm going to call this Livin' La Vida Ubuntu. It's a crazy life because I am because you are. You are an extension of me. In fact, turn to your neighbors right now, and say, you don't complete me. Say it. Because I don't know you like that. But you are an extension of me. Say it. You are an extension of me. Now, don't get me wrong. This is this understanding of this force around individuals is not like some kind of Star Wars force, but this force is what life force is what enables people to live the quality of relationships they were intended to live. That's Ubuntu. That's Ubuntu, a holistic perspective. So I want to give you I am because of others. I want to give you 3 points really quickly. I am because of the community. You are an extension of me. I want to give you 3 quick points on, Ivan, this sounds good, but how do we actually live out this Ubuntu life, okay? So here's one thing. For Asians, and this is particularly for Asians as we apply Ubuntu to us. And it still applies to everybody else. And Asians, we have to acknowledge we've been through a lot. We work hard. We suffer sometimes. Our family has been torn apart. Immigration, we live all over the world, and we're starting to get noticed now. But we want to turn our suffering into celebration. And this is what we do in Africa, as I've experienced. We don't start anything without celebrating. We dance, we sing, and for a whole hour before our board meetings. I mean, we don't stop. And then our white people in our board meetings, God bless them, they say, hey, when are we going to start the meeting? We already started an hour ago. This is celebration. What are we celebrating about when people are stripped of their resources and of their money and of their political power? They celebrate what they have, their relationships, their Ubuntu living. Another one I want to emphasize. Education begins with the family. I've seen the ideals of the Asian family, and it's great. The fathers and the mothers who take care of their children, and the children honor and respect them, and yet there's still love and there's a lot of fun. But the learning has to begin with the family unit. This has to be true for Hong Kong in order to reshape. Till recently, Asians have always thought of themselves as stuck in the middle, working hard, but being kind of unnoticed by the rest of the world. Have you noticed that? The invisible liminality, the in-betweenness. And so I would ask the students in this room, engage the transforming process of living in between, because no longer are Asians that quiet anymore. We've got the, not only crazy rich Asians, Toronto, Canada just found out that there are basketball Asian players too. So think about it. Engage the transforming process, because that is the perspective that will continue to change as we engage the world via Ubuntu. We want to do beyond the superficial things, like wear the same clothes. I see the men, the students, the male students wear the same clothes all the time. I see the women who wear the same clothes all the time. I want to urge you to not to go beyond the superficial things in order to feel like we belong, when in fact we already belong together. That's a revolutionary perspective of Ubuntu, and that's the Ubuntu way of living. We are because we belong. We are because of others. We are because of the communities around us. We are an extension of each other, and that should reshape our learning. Amaharo means peace be with you and your communities, wherever your communities are, and I hope they belong here in Hong Kong, because we belong. Thank you.